Hello everybody, welcome back. I have got yet another triangle strategy character guide for you. This time we're talking Roland. I'll be completely honest, we're getting into our dumpster level characters. I do not like Roland. I think that his kit just doesn't work well with hard mode. Some of the easier difficulties, he's probably pretty solid, but on hard mode, he's just, in the way he plays, I never really thought was that great. But anyways, all right, let's get into, and also I should say there's specific points in the game where, depending on your choices, he may just leave you, which is the chapter, I think it was like chapter 7, you've got a choice on whether or not to hand him over to Frost or not. And if you hand him over, he's gone. He's not in your party and he's not usable. And then he comes back and he's, underleveled, so... I just, I don't know. Anyways, all right, let's get into his accessories. Honestly, I just threw whatever on him because I don't use him, and I never really put all that much thought into what he's got. It probably makes sense, actually, because of the way that I would like to play him, to just go full bore, like full-on strength, and try to keep him into the back and deal as much damage with Flash of Steel as possible. And just keep him safe. Because that's one of the bigger problems, is he's actually got slightly lower than average physical defense. And for kind of like a melee, well, I mean, he's kind of a melee range character, right? That's just not quite good enough. His magic attack is actually pretty good, so he's, kind of okay at throwing magical-based items. Magic defense, right in the middle, but although I also do have a magic defense bracelet on him that's giving him 4. So his base is actually slightly below average. His luck is a 45, which is okay. He does get crits quite a bit. His accuracy is pretty good. His speed is actually pretty good as well. That's, again, like slightly above average, I would say. His evasion is middle of the road. That's pretty average. Jump is a 2, that's average. But his movement is 6, and that's above average. There's a couple of characters that actually get, a 6 movement, and so he is obviously one of those. Alright, so anyways, one of the issues, though, and it's kind of funny, is his passive here is Knight's Bane, which says increases damage inflicted to you by spears. That's because he's basically a cavalry unit, right? He's on a horse. Anything that's on a horse has issues with spears. Which is also kind of funny because he uses a spear, so... you'll take a little bit more damage from them, which is, not great. And then here he's got double thrust. This is actually probably the ability that I use the most. 255 power. He gets a weapon skill that reduces the TP cost of this. I think down to 1. So very similar to Maxwell, actually. Maxwell has triple thrust and Roland has double, which, Maxwell's better. And then Rush, again, very similar actually to Maxwell's ability as well. So it says move 4 squares in a straight line, dealing physical damage to any enemies in 3 squares along the way. And then he'll end at that 4th square if it's open. If it's not open, it's the same as Maxwell, where he will just stay at the spot that he starts at, right? So... you can kind of plan around that, and honestly, more times than not, it's better to just stay where he starts the rush from, because, zipping through enemies oftentimes will end up with Roland out in the middle of nowhere and incredibly vulnerable to, the rest of the enemies that are likely standing behind. One way, though, that you can kind of get around that is if you've got enough movement, you can run all the way to the back of the enemy and then rush back through them towards, your troops. But again, there has to be enough room for him to end up, in that correct spot. Otherwise, he's going to be stuck out in the middle of nowhere. So, rush is just kind of hard to use. And actually, honestly, there's a lot of times where double thrust is just better, right? You don't have to worry about kind of ending up in the middle of nowhere. But next up is Opportune Attack. So it says deal physical damage to a single adjacent enemy when moving 5 squares or more. You really want to be, what you want to be doing with Roland is kind of like hit and run, right? So On one turn, you'll try to go as far as you can to get to the enemy, and that'll trigger the opportune attack, and then use like double thrust or rush to kind of get back towards your own characters. Otherwise, you know, you'll end your turn next to the enemy, and then the following turn, what you want to do is attack and then move back to where you were, like as far as you can move, right? And then that way, the following turn after that, like it would be the third turn, then you can do opportune attack again. It can be just really tough to actually trigger that, but when it does work, you know, it's a little bit of extra damage. Unfortunately, though, Roland is pretty weak, and so even these opportune attacks just aren't really going to be doing that much damage. I was never, I mean, I'll be honest, I was just never really impressed with those. I should also say that his basic attack is, since it's a spear, it can hit 2 units. So if a unit is standing behind another one, and you can just use a basic attack and you'll hit both, which is, you know, kind of nice. Or you can stand a little bit farther away, or even behind, you know, if you've got like if you've got Eridor up front and he's, you know, adjacent to an enemy, you can actually stand behind Eridor, thrust kind of through him, right, to hit the enemy, and Roland will stay safe. So, you know, at least there's some ways that he can kind of stay safe, and he really needs to. Next up here is pushback. This actually has some good uses. Obviously, the power is 238. Unfortunately, he has to be right next to them, but it says deal physical damage to an enemy and knock them back 3 squares. Again, some kind of interesting uses. If you're, you know, at the edge of a canyon, you can knock enemies into the canyon. On the bridge level here, I'll try to knock some people down to the bottom. And then you've got Flash of Steel, which actually I think is my favorite character, or I'm sorry, my favorite attack of his. Jeez. Power is 229, the range is 1 to 5, and it says deal physical damage to any enemies in a straight line of 5 squares. It's the range that makes this so good. Enemies don't always line up real well for you, but there are also certain levels like the Crown City where there's that like kind of alleyway on the left-hand side of the screen that, you know, it's basically a single square route, and when the enemies stack up there, Flash of Steel obviously will hit every single one of them that's lined up. So, you know, it does have some really good uses, and he can stay pretty safe, and that's why actually I think that this is my favorite ability of his. Obviously, 3 TP cost is pretty steep, but that's kind of the price for safety. Spring in your step says increases your movement by 1 with clear weather. Again, a lot of levels where there's clear weather, well, he'll get this extra movement. You know, he's already got a ton, and sure, you know, it's always good to have more, but I don't know. It's kind of one of those deals where I'm like, whatever. You know, again, one of those passives where it's I would rather have it than not have it, but boy, I'd rather have some other passives. And so, because this is his final skill, that's the skill that you get when you do his final promotion. Roland was one of the very last people that I promoted. Again, mostly because I didn't like him, never used him, and Spring in Your Step is not very good. So, didn't really feel like wasting a promotion item on him. And then his weapon skill here is 4 Dragons. That's his power 272 plus. It says deal physical damage to a single enemy, ignoring their defense. That's pretty good, but this is way too expensive for that. You know, had this been cheaper or in his like regular kit, you know, it would have been a lot better, but you know, that's just way too steep of a cost. And he does have to be adjacent to the enemy to use this as well. So sure, it hits pretty hard, and especially to you know, the enemies that have a lot more physical defense, like the shield bearers or the pikemen, but you know, he has to be at a significant disadvantage, or he can't be super safe, I guess is what I'm trying to say, when he uses this. So anyways, let's take a look here at some of his different abilities, or like see him in action maybe. Benedict, let's give him a 2-fold.
Make it up here.
I'll do my utmost.
I think I put Medina in here with Julio to keep him, you know, kind of with more TP. I just don't think, honestly, like, if you're going to be using Medina, There are better characters to be giving TP to than Roland, certainly. You know, Decimal, Archibald. I mean, really, like, literally anybody else is better, but I actually just wanted to throw this in here just so that you could see. You know, one of the things that you can do, though, is to do, or, you know, have Medina with Roland so that he can be fueling his abilities like this. So, there's Flash of Steel. You know, this isn't going to do much damage, you can see here. 505 to 387, that's just a little bit more than 100, like, yeah, like 120 or so. Rush here, so this is what I mean by, you know, Rush is not good. I mean, especially because, I mean, look at the TP cost is the same. The only thing that you'd be getting out of Rush would be, you know, possibly an opportune attack. So, like, I could use a Rush right here, and sure, you know, Roland will end up at that spot, but, you know, that's really risky, right? Because then he's definitely going to be taking attacks from both of those enemies. They both have spears, meaning he's going to be taking even more. He's going to get shot from above. So, not a good ability to be using there. Excuse me. Otherwise, I could do... Let's see here. Oh, yeah, that's not going to work either. Yeah, that stinks. Huh. This is not as good as... Oh, I know what happened. I was going to say this is not as good as Maxwell's, but I know the reason why Maxwell's looked better is because he couldn't actually end at his last spot. So, like, even here, that's not going to work either, because it's the same kind of deal, right? He's going to be stuck here out in the middle of nowhere. You know, if these enemies were positioned just a little bit differently, I might be able to make that work, but I think what I'll do here is just do a Flash of Steel. Yeah, that got a crit too, which happens actually a lot. And I'll show you oh shit, that's not going to be enough TP. Dang, okay. Well, this will be an opportune attack. And then actually we'll just do a pushback for fun. I kind of wish I would have had Rush. So if I would have had Rush right now, Roland would actually use Rush right here, and then he'd actually stay where he's at, because what's going to happen here is he you know, hits these 3 squares, but then he ends at the 4th one. But since this isn't an eligible square, you know, he would stay here. But let's do this, and then actually yeah, I don't know. Neither of these options feels that good, but we'll do the pushback. It'll get us some. So here's the opportune attack. Yeah, 44 damage. That's terrible. And then there's the, you know, the pushback. So there, I got a little bit of collision damage out of it as well. But, you know, really high TP cost. Now he's stuck here, and he's going to be, you know, probably getting murked by, yeah, that archer is already annihilating him, dropped him down to half health. I mean, I would already need to bail this guy out, because there's just no way he's going to survive the 2, you know, guys with the lances. I just, you know, so much of Roland is about movement and moving around, and, you know, okay, cool attacks of opportunity, but most times at the end of the day, it just doesn't end up working out well. So, and it would be better if he had really, really good defense, but he just doesn't, and so he can't take hits, you know, good enough to kind of play the way that I think he's kind of intended to be played. So instead, I would just say, you know, use Flash of Steel, stay safe, stay in the back. If you can, sometimes, you know, knock enemies down, you know, below on the bridge with the pushback. Sometimes, you know, a little bit of collision damage here and there works as well. But all right, so let's take a look at his weapon abilities. So he's got, you know, potency, health, physical defense, magic defense, and then increases your luck at max HP. I would go first with the physical defense, then the magic defense, then the HP, then potency, then the luck increase last. He does get crits a lot, but I don't know. The dude just doesn't do damage, so it doesn't really matter. Alright, so next up, he's got, you know, potency, HP increase. And then here you've got double thrust TP -1 or rush TP -1. I just think double thrust is better. Rush is, you know, it's just one of those abilities where it's just so tough to actually use this at good times where he doesn't end up like at a significant risk. So I just don't really use it that much. So again, I would go with the double thrust TP reduction, and then he's got increases the damage dealt by critical hits. So that's kind of like the critical, I think it's the critical necklace accessory, which is a very, very good accessory, but I always have it on Serenella. As far as these and the order, I would definitely buy the double thrust TP cost reduction first. Then I would probably go with the health, then the potency, and then the crit damage up last. And then for his last tier here, honestly, at this point, I just don't even care. 4 dragons is not that great. I wouldn't probably buy that, although, I don't know, maybe busting tanks isn't such a bad thing, and you could get that first. It's a toss-up between the regular potency and 4 dragons probably first, and then I would buy luck 3 last. You know, getting crits is great and everything, but you know, it's not always going to happen, and so I'd rather have just, you know, I would rather just deal a little bit more damage with, you know, every attack as opposed to every once in a while getting lucky. So anyways, that's going to be it for Roland. Again, I just really don't like him. I think that his, you know, his kit probably works better on some of the lower difficulties, but on hard mode he's just not good, and it's really tough to actually use him. And you know, there's some abilities that can, or at least Flash of Steel can keep him really, really safe. But the problem is it's very expensive, and other support characters it's better to use the TP on other characters and not Roland, and so, you know, I don't think he's very good. So anyways, that is going to be it for Roland. As always, hope the guide was helpful, and thank you for watching.